So we're going to just go over the answers to the adding and subtracting decimals questions. The first one was just a series of just straightforward adding and subtracting of decimals. Some had tenths, some had hundredths, and some had thousandths in them. So I just have all the answers written down here, so you can just take a quick look and compare them to your own answers. Just remember that when you were adding or subtracting these, remember the most important thing was to line up those decimals when you're stacking them on top of each other. If one of the decimals had fewer digits after the decimal place, so for example, this one down here, H, it only has one place value here, has the tenths, whereas it's being subtracted by a decimal that goes to the hundredths. So what you'd want to do for this type of a question is add a 0 after the 8, so they both have hundredths in them. And then it's just 80 hundredths minus 36 hundredths equals 44 hundredths. I think the rest of them, or all the ones up here, I think all have equal numbers of digits after the decimal. So it's just H, I, and J. So again, I and J, you'd want to add a 0 onto each of these decimals so they have the same number as the decimal that they're being added or subtracted to. If they have a dollar sign like E and K, just be sure that you have your dollar sign in your answer because you need to have your correct units. So if you haven't checked all of your answers yet, you might just want to pause the video at this point. So number 2 is a word problem. It says solve the word problems by adding or subtracting the decimals. The perimeter of a rectangle is 74.2 centimeters. What might the length and width be of the rectangle? So it says what might the length and width of the rectangle be. So there's really going to be a whole bunch of possible answers for this. But the way that you solve it, you can draw a rectangle, and we'll just call this side A and this side B. So if the length here, if we call it A, then down here this is also A, and if the width is B, then over here this will also be B. And for perimeter, remember that's the distance around a shape. So if I'm finding the perimeter of this rectangle, I'm going to go A plus B plus A plus B. Okay, so I have a little equation down here, A plus B plus A plus B, and it needs to equal our total perimeter of 74.2 centimeters. Now instead of trying to think of some decimals that will add up to that, what we can do is just look at half of the rectangle. So if I know that A plus B plus A plus B should equal 74.2 centimeters, then if I look at half of the rectangle, just A plus B, it should equal half of 74.2 centimeters. So if I take 74.2 and I cut it in half or divide it by 2, it equals 37.1. So now all I have to do is just think of two decimals that will be my A and my B that when they add together equal 37.1 centimeters. So that could be as simple as just saying one is 30 and the other is 7.1, or if you want it to be make it a little bit trickier, you could say A is 25.5 and B is 11.6. And again, there's going to be several possible answers. So as long as your two sides, your length and your width, add up to 37.1 centimeters, then you've done it correctly. Okay, for this word problem, it says that we have Mr. Queensberry. He needs some rope for his sailboat. He had one piece that was 2.43 meters long and another piece that was 2.18 meters long. He said that he had a total of 46.1 meters. What did he do wrong when adding these decimals? So we need to figure out what went wrong. So here are my two pieces of rope. I've got one that's 2.43 meters, or 2 and 43 hundredths of a meter, and then another is 2 and 18 hundredths. Now when Mr. Queensberry added those together, he got 46.1. So let's add them together and see what happens. So 2.43, I'll stack them, plus 2.18. 3 plus 8 is 11. Put 1 down, carry the 1. 1 plus 4 plus 1 is 6. And 2 plus 2 is 4. Bring down my decimal, and make sure that I include my units of meters. So the correct answer is 4.61 meters. So we compare that to what Mr. Queensberry got. He got 46.1. Well, what happened was Mr. Queensberry put the decimal in the wrong spot. He put it between the 6 and the 1 when it should have been between the 4 and the 6. So that's just a reminder. It's very important to line up those decimals and include your units as well. Question C. At the track and field meet at Swangard, Wolfie Wolferton jumped 8.26 meters in the long jump competition. This was 0.57 meters farther than the second place finisher, Mikey McMikerson. How far did Mikey McMikerson jump? Alright, so we've got our two contestants here, Wolfie Wolferton and Mikey McMikerson. The Wolf jumps 8.26 meters. Mikey McMikerson jumps, and it doesn't tell us how far he jumped. That's what we have to figure out, but it does tell us that Wolfie Wolferton jumped 0.57 meters farther than Mikey McMikerson. So if this is where Mikey McMikerson landed, and this is where the Wolf landed, so that distance in between them should be 0.57 meters. So all I need to do is take this total distance, 8.26 meters, and subtract from it that 0.57 meters, and that will give me how far Mikey McMikerson jumped. So let's do that. 8.26 minus 0.57, stack them. 6 minus 7 we can't do, so we regroup the 2, leave a 1 behind, and bring a 1 over here. So that's 16 minus 7 equals 9. Now I have 1 minus 5, I can't do that, so I've got to regroup the 8 into a 7. This becomes 11 minus 5 is 6, and then 7 minus 0 is 7. Bring down our decimal, include our units of meters, and that tells us that Mikey McMikerson jumped 7.69 meters. Okay, and the last question that we have here is Mr. Harris got $50 for his birthday. He spent $29.95 on a thrilling documentary on iTunes on the migration patterns of woodbugs. Then he spent $9.29 on snacks to have while watching the amazing documentary. How much money does he have left over from the original $50? Alright, so here I am with my $50, and we want to find out how much money is left over after purchasing that movie on iTunes and buying those snacks. So if I start with 50 and I'm going to take away that $29.95 for the movie, I could just subtract it like this. However, there's lots of zeros up here, so that would require a lot of regrouping. So we can just do a quick bit of mental math here, and I can just take away 1 cent from both questions, or sorry, from both numbers. So instead of $50 and $29.95, the question becomes $49.99 because that's 1 cent less than $50, and $29.94 because that's 1 cent less than $29.95. And when I subtract this, it's so much easier because there's no regrouping. 9 minus 4 is 5, 9 minus 9 is 0, 9 minus 9 is 0, and 4 minus 2 is 2. Bring my units down, dollars, bring my decimal down. So now I'm at $20.05 after purchasing the movie. Then with that remaining money, Mr. Harris spent $9.29 on snacks. So I take that $20.05 and I'm going to subtract $9.29 from it. Again, there's some zeros. The digits up here are all smaller than the digits below, so there's going to be a lot of regrouping. So instead of doing that, I can do some mental math and make a friendly number here. If I take away 6 cents from this, it'll turn it into $19.99. That's much better when I have all those 9s up there. But remember, whatever you do to one number, you have to do to the other number when you're subtracting. So I also have to subtract 6 cents from this decimal. So $20.05, if I take away 6 cents, becomes $19.99. If I take away 6 cents from $9.29, it becomes $9.23. Now I can subtract these. 9 minus 3 is 6, 9 minus 2 is 7, 9 minus 9 is 0, and 1 minus nothing is 1. Have my dollar sign and the decimal, so that Mr. Harris has $10.76 left over.